step into battle rap and do this. And if Body didn't exist, there's a good chance that we wouldn't actually be having this conversation. So shout out this dude.
you appreciate it, you appreciate.
Wow, so that's interesting. Hold on, that's interesting for me. Can I ask you a question now?
Of course.
See, this
okay,
is what
cool.
happens with
cool. This is great. So look,
when we get a hold of somebody who's not of it, it's like, oh, hold on.
Right.
Now I want to hear your opinion on things.
So for you,
you're a rare gem to us.
So for you per se, the movie Battled is what led you to. You hear me? Battled. Oh my God! How many blunts have we smoked? So for you, for I would say your generation, but for you per se.
For me personally.
The movie Bodied. Yeah, for you personally, the movie Bodied is what led you to look into battle.
So what it did was it answered questions I had. Because, that protagonist in that movie, I had to review it on a Patreon request. So, on a Patreon request, I had to review it. So it's this hour and a half video of me and my girlfriend talking about this. But really, I took notes and everything. It's I used to be that guy. Down to the point where I would look for excuses to try to technically maybe drop an M-bomb here and there at 23, being some edgelord type shit, right? So I'm watching this guy who I swear is me when I start rapping. All this shit, all of it, trying to get girl, all of it, down to the way he betrays the man. But really in the middle of that, I'm watching the XO's X-Ho, and it popped up and I'm like, oh, and it was real visual and shit. But that stuck with me. And then I caught the disaster getting punched part. That was a cool pun or whatever for visual thing. But also it's shit seeing Riff Raff and Andy Milonakis, or I can't say his name right for the life of me.
Andy Milonakis.
I just what? I like this guy so much and I can't do it. I just fucking fumble every time. But I seen Dirt Nasty. No, it was Dirt Nasty's there. Or Charlemagne the God crushed it too. So it had all these people in it that I was already familiar with. That was cool. But it was just the way that it kind of showed in the most marketing stereotype way possible a lot of the dynamics. But then it also was people rap about guns out of respect. Because why are we going to talk about our personal lives like that? You really want to ruin each other's? Nah, let us talk about my gun so big. And I'm like, oh, that's why my gun so big bars exists. And then you start really getting this translation where it's people finding out this guy is a program mannered video game guy that has an impact. He's trying to protect his family and his shit. How are you gonna make bars? And then you watch him make these choices and you're like, yo, that's just dirty to see. And it really so now when you're circling back to we all gonna jump you violence, it's yo, I guess it's more Mortal Kombat than it is anything else. But it's actually yo, they could do real damage. And then I'm yo, I'm glad I never battle rapped. I would have done some dumb shit and gotten hurt.
So I'm glad you said that, because for me, depending on what generation you're in, determines on what side of this battle rap culture you came into, right? So for a lot of people, right, for a lot of us, we came from the culture that we were watching the Smack DVDs, or we were watching the Sub-Zeros, and we were watching the what else we were watching? Oh my God, we were watching so fucking much. I can't remember everything, but we were watching these, and it was at a time where, like you said, you came into it where you watched this movie called Body, and it introduced you to it. Everybody has a different story of how they ended up stumbling upon into battle rap, right?
Yo, Sarah,
yeah, what's up?
I think there's a very thing to do in your interview and shit. Say hi, Paulie.
What's going on,
Hi,
Paulie. I just want to say Happy Mother's Day to you, because how we were talking about the other day, you're definitely one of the mothers. You're definitely, without a doubt, one of the mothers of hip hop. You get what I'm saying? Especially from what I know, so what I grew up on. So, you know what I mean? Shouts to you and Happy Mother's Day for that,
Thank you, my love. Love you. And give the girls a kiss for me. I like that shirt, by the way.
Shit's fly, right?
Sorry, guys.
I already know.
Okay.
Minute 20.
But,
Okay.
yeah, so thank you. Happy Mother's Day to everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sorry about that.
But yeah, so like I was saying, that transition is different for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And battle rap right now it's in need of a certain structure, and that structure is this history that you're getting. There's not a lot of people that understand the history, right? Yeah, we know Smack, right? But how many of you can say that you actually saw the DVDs or you went to YouTube to see what the DVD used to look like? There's a difference between you watching Smack on YouTube versus the people that actually bought
But
the
it's
DVDs
even
at
more
that time,
like
right?
you guys grew up in an environment where literally you would go hood to hood and battle, and that's like your come up. I grew up in an era where I start music in 2012, so I'm just copping beats and making music and going to a studio, and it's all like affordable. And I never even
And you're right about that. Go into the Bronx. I went to Patterson, New Jersey one time to battle a dude named Dice who was fire, but you know, it's just everybody got their hood, they rep their hood. So you was going just to see, you know, it's the same story you get from Biggie. Biggie was in his hood and he was going to other hoods to battle. You know what I'm saying? And it was like
you go to your neighboring neighborhoods in New York City. You go to you walk a few blocks and you're in somebody else's neighborhood. So like you would do that, you know, but that was also really dangerous. Like I'd look back at like what we were doing and I'm like, yo, we was bugging. Like we would
which segues into what we were doing. I feel like that once we had the opportunity with Grind Time, and see, my experience into Grind Time was I didn't know about it. We were watching it. We were watching stuff in Dutch's house. I think one of the first battles we ever saw that introduced us to the Grind Time brand. And shout out to Lush, and shout out to Direct, and shout out to Matt Hills, and rest in peace to my brother Pumpkinhead. We were watching Tantrum versus what's his name? Dumbfounded. We were watching Tantrum versus Dumbfounded, and then we watched, I believe, Conceited versus Tall T. Rest in peace, Tall T. And it was around the time where Pumpkinhead was getting down with Grind Time, and I think I was in your house when he called us. I think I was in Dutch's house when I got the call.
Yeah.
And PH was about to do a chapter in Grind Time, New York. They had one, but you know, we won't get into the big discussion of that. And if you guys spoke to Frankie Waps or something like that, you might get this.
Frank Stacks, not Frank Waps.
Okay. All right. Well, it's different. There's no story behind it. But,
I'm only talking to the important people, B. You know what I mean? Like, we're not doing all that.
So once Pumpkinhead took over, it was kind of like, yo, we stood together, like, and he said it. He said, I need you to do a battle. We found a female for you. I need you to do the battle. I didn't want to do it. At first, I was like, I'm tired. It's been mad years at this point for me. It may not be mad years for everybody else because now the internet is different. But for me, it was like, oh, now, nigga, like, it's already mad years. But I knew, and I think it was funny because we were having this conversation. I knew I needed to do it. I had to do it because I didn't want to do it, but I knew somebody had to do something. Somebody had to do something to get the ball rolling. And I was like, whether they like me or not, the way battle rap is if you beat the top person, you get on, right? So at the time, I was considered the top person. Nobody understood why, because they didn't have footage to go by, because at the time, Fight Club was defunct and didn't release any other footage other than what they had done.
Did you tell Holden about like how you used to body like the dudes that they did put in front? Like how many dudes
No, we
you
did
bodied?
not talk about all the dudes you bodied, Sara Kana. Talk about the dudes you bodied. Tell them.
So, all right. So, and he tells it so much better. So yeah, I was in Fight Club, and unfortunately, they couldn't find girls. And the second time around, when I returned to Fight Club, it was still the same thing. There wasn't really a lot of girls. So what happened was, shout out to Von Dutch and shout out to International P and J. At the time, there was a gentleman named Jay who was running Fight Club. or whatever. And shout out to them because they stood behind me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they were just like, yo, they're not fucking with Sara, right? And there was one point where Von Dutch was just kind of like, yo, keep coming back every Friday. Just keep coming back. Just keep coming back. And at some point, it started to happen to keep my sword sharp because Monday would come and it was nothing. You know what I'm saying? Or that's what they would tell me. You know what I'm saying? So to say. So when people were coming to try out for Fight Club, it got to a point where I was the person that you tried out against at some point in Fight Club. So and this was around the time when Iron was at the top of Fight Club, where Iron was like the shit. And if you battled him, it means you were like, oh, you got there, right? So now Iron's coming in with his lunch and he sees me. I know Iron from end of the week, right? I know he battled, but I knew Iron from end of the week more or less, right? That's my end of the week brother. So when he come in, he see the line full of guys. Shout out to my Grib, who was a part of that. Shout out to a dude named 40 from Jersey. He was a part. I bodied him. Ooh, I did him greasy. And it was a whole line, right?
There we go.
Like, it was a whole line, and then it got to a point where, like, they got, Iron Solomon walks in, so they're like, oh shit, it's Iron. And when Iron walks in, the first words out his mouth was, the person you have to be careful with is her. Mm-hmm. But he tells the whole line, this is the person you have to be careful with, right? So, of course, being a female and a level of testosterone that's through the roof, of course, with hip hop, there were some dudes that were like, okay. And then you had the dudes that was like, she ain't doing shit, man. This ain't, bitch gonna kill me. And it got to a point where, like, that same dude that was talking shit finally got to see me. And it was great because for me, it was like, I looked at Dutch, I was like, I'm gonna embarrass the fuck out of this. But at that time, I was probably the only person that knew how to flip the whole narrative of the gay, lesbian, you're gay, you're ugly, you're fat, you're this. There was really nobody flipping that but Goddess in the Midwest at the time. So when he got in front of me, he was coming at me with all kinds of insults. Like, oh, Dyke, go watch this shit. Go do this. Dyke. I think I heard like 50 dykes in his brown. I don't even remember, but I just remember looking at Dutch and I was like, yo, if he says this shit one more time, and he said it again. And I was like, oh my God, like how many times he's gonna call me a dyke in one bar? And then it came to my turn and I just looked at him and it was just like, I was hyped. Like, and then Dutch was trying to tell me to calm down. Everybody was like, just relax, take your time. Cause I had a habit back then too of getting too hyped, as you can see with the Goddess versus Sara Kana battle. But I just went at him. I remember because I looked at him and I said, yo, this dude keep calling me a dyke. Well, you absolutely right. And since you pussy, I guess I'll be eating you tonight. And then everybody was like, ah, like I just remember the reaction in the room was just so crazy. Yeah. And then I just started hitting him. And I remember just leaving my last bar because it was still time. And it was like 90 seconds back then. And like you had to stick to the time. And I just remember right before it came to that time, I started calling him Flavor, and I had everybody dying. And shit, KM was there actually too. Shout out to my brother Young Guns.